A low hum fills the room as the monitors flicker and buzz erratically. Outside, the trembling of the planet's surface is almost unbearable, each explosion sending shockwaves that rattle the walls and the very ground beneath. The air is thick with dust and the scent of burning metal. The sound of distant, echoing blasts reverberates through the facility like an endless drumbeat of destruction. Click, whispering, voice trembling. It's them, they are real. Commander Trzenerin stands frozen in place, eyes wide in disbelief, as the data stream on the console before him flickers and readjusts. His antennae twitched nervously, reacting to the strange energy signatures now flooding the systems. Lieutenant Blatz, hushed, eyes wide. Commander, they are not just any ships. These are massive, too massive. The readings, they defy what we know about space travel. A low rumble shakes the walls, causing sparks to jump from a damaged console. It feels as though the command center itself might collapse under the pressure. The tension in the room thickens like smoke. Suddenly, the screens shift, displaying a new visual, an image of deep space, vast and infinite, yet in that emptiness, something is emerging from the black void. Ships. But not just any ships. Click, voice shaking. They are here. The view of the approaching fleet is both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The ships materialize out of the darkness, their forms so large and grotesque that they almost seem to distort the very fabric of space around them. They seem like colossal, abandoned gods of war, their jagged, irregular structures designed not for beauty, but for destruction. Commander TRZ, in a low whisper, his voice quivering. What are those? The ships appear to be a chaotic assembly of technology, some smooth and sleek, others bulbous and misshapen, as though constructed from parts scavenged across galaxies. They move with a disturbing grace, their massive engines glowing ominously with a red light that seems to pulse with a life of its own. Lieutenant Blatz, eyes narrowing, staring at the screen. Impossible. These ships, they look like they've been built for war, but they don't follow any known design principles. They are unpredictable, wild. Admiral Vox, leaning forward, his gaze sharp and focused, a deep frown etched on his battle-worn face. These aren't just ships. This is a fleet, a force. One that doesn't just destroy, it decimates everything in its path. A voice, cold yet oddly melodic, crackles through the speakers. Admiral Morgan Walsh, through the COMM, chillingly calm. This is Admiral Morgan Walsh of the Reaper Fleet, Earth's finest. We received your distress signal. Sorry we're late. We had to make a stop. The screen shifts, and the image of Admiral Walsh appears. She stands, tall and imposing, dressed in a pristine white uniform adorned with gleaming medals. Her expression is stone-cold serious, but there's a glint in her eyes that betrays the humor she holds back. Commander TRZ, confused, cautiously hopeful. Admiral Walsh? You came? The camera zooms in on her as she addresses the room with a calmness that contrasts the chaos around her. Admiral Walsh, smirking slightly. Of course. We're not the kind of species to leave our allies hanging. Now, let's get to work. Drop ships, ready your deployment. We have a planet to save. The command center's view screen flickers and shifts again, now displaying the first of the human ships in their full, horrifying glory. These ships are not mere machines of war, they are monsters of metal and fire, forged for only one purpose: total annihilation. The ship's hulls are adorned with strange symbols, depictions of skeletons and death, stylized and looming, a haunting reminder of the reputation Earth's fleet has earned. Lieutenant Blaz, wide-eyed, almost breathless. Those ships, they look like creatures from the darkest legends. Commander TRZ, watching in awe and fear. They are not ships. They are nightmares forged in reality. The view screen zooms in on the massive flagship, the Harbinger, a vessel of unspeakable size and intimidating design. It stretches nearly 5 kilometers from bow to stern, its form almost too enormous to comprehend, moving through space like an unstoppable force. The sight of this monstrous ship alone is enough to freeze the blood of the bravest warriors. Yet it is not alone. Behind it, at least 20 more ships emerge, each one a grotesque masterpiece of destructive engineering. Admiral Vox, watching, his voice filled with awe. I've seen many fleets, but this is something else. There's a madness in how they fight. The camera pulls back slightly to show the human fleet spreading out like a deadly swarm, their movements unpredictable yet unnervingly precise. The weapons on these ships are beyond anything the Vidayan defense systems have ever encountered. Plick, eyes wide with disbelief. They are preparing for battle. They are not just here to help. They are here to destroy. The room falls silent. The walls shake again as another tremor runs through the planet, signaling the arrival of the Droyan forces. They are relentless, but against this new enemy, they may be nothing more than prey. The human ships don't just enter the atmosphere, they descend with terrifying speed, launching themselves at the planet's surface in a manner that defies all logic. It's as if the laws of physics don't apply to them, or maybe, they simply don't care. Their landing pods break through the atmosphere, descending in a hail of fire and destruction, sending shockwaves that shake the ground beneath. Each dropship impacts with brutal force, their massive landing legs carving craters into the once fertile soil. Lieutenant Blaz, voice trembling, as she watches the ships. They are dropping from space. Admiral Vox, grimly smiling. In their world, this is how they fight. It's madness. And it's beautiful. The battle against the Droyans begins in a horrifying, chaotic fury. Explosions fill the sky, each blast as violent and stunning as the last. Human soldiers pour from the dropships, armed with weapons that seem to tear apart the very fabric of space itself. They fight not with precision, but with a raw, unstoppable energy that overwhelms the enemy. The Droyans, once so sure of their victory, are now caught off guard by the madness of the humans. These reapers fight like demons from the darkest myths, yet they move with a purpose, a calculated chaos that is as beautiful as it is deadly. In the command center, the room is filled with disbelief and awe. The once hopeful and desperate alien forces watch as the humans fight in ways they could never have imagined. Their tactics unpredictable, dangerous, almost suicidal are not the methods of a mere warrior race. They are the methods of a species that has lived through chaos, learned from it, and now dances with it. Plick, staring at the screen, his voice breathless. This is beyond anything we could have imagined. Lieutenant Blaz, in awe. They are unstoppable. It's as if the universe itself bends to their will. Commander TRZ, shaking his head, a mixture of fear and admiration. This is why the Droians should have feared them. The human fleet moves with an elegance and chaos that leaves the enemy commanders in shock. Their weapons distort reality, tearing apart the enemy ships with frightening precision. The Droians, though powerful, are unprepared for this kind of fight. Space, Earth's fleet arrives. The view screen flickers, its static-filled glow casting a dim, unsettling light across the command center. The vastness of space stretches before them, a dark abyss without end. And then emerging from the inky blackness a shape. At first, it seems like a faint silhouette, but as it grows closer, the enormity of the ship becomes undeniable. The screen seems too small to contain it. A hulking mass, jagged and unyielding, slowly materializes from the void. The sheer scale of it is beyond comprehension. It dwarfs everything around it, a gargantuan presence that seems to warp the very fabric of space itself. Lieutenant Blaz, whispering, voice trembling with awe. That can't be real. Is that the size of their ships? Her voice falters as the ship continues to grow on the screen, its form so immense that it seems to stretch the boundaries of reality. The edges of the ship are ragged, as if it had been torn and stitched together, its dark hull covered in scars and scorch marks, as though it had weathered countless battles. Ambassador Krell, staring in disbelief, his voice a low hiss. That's the Harbinger, the flagship of the Reaper fleet. This is impossible. His voice betrays a hint of fear. The Harbinger, as it is called, looms like a nightmare from the depths of space. Its vast surface gleams with a cold, unnatural sheen, reflecting the distant stars in jagged, unsettling patterns. The ship is an unholy fusion of technology and brute force, a war machine designed not to conquer, but to obliterate. The camera zooms in on the ship as it grows closer. Its enormous engines pulse with an ominous red light, casting a hellish glow across the blackness of space. The ship hums with energy, as though it is alive, ready to unleash its terrible power. Its silhouette is monstrous, every angle sharp and aggressive, a dark omen of doom. Commander TRZ whispers, eyes wide, almost as if he's speaking to himself. What are those? His voice is edged with a mixture of awe and terror, as he stares at the nightmare unfolding before him. The ships are unlike any he has ever seen before. They are massive, hulking behemoths, bristling with weaponry that seems more akin to the jaws of some colossal, mechanical beast than anything human-made. The first ship is followed by another, then another, each one a grotesque fusion of twisted metal and blood-red lights, their silhouettes so terrifying that they almost seem to distort the stars around them. The ships do not just arrive in formation, they manifest, like harbingers of doom that have been summoned from the darkest corners of the universe. Each one appears more terrifying than the last, their hulls scarred and jagged, like creatures from an ancient nightmare. Their weaponry is on full display: cannons, turrets, and strange devices that pulse with a dark energy. The sheer force of their presence seems to choke the very air, a suffocating weight that presses down on the command center. The space around them seems to bend, as if reality itself is struggling to contain the might of these ships. The fleet begins to deploy with unnerving precision, as though the ships are not merely floating in space, but moving with a will of their own. They are not just vessels, they are monsters, each one a living entity of war. The weapons on each ship gleam with deadly intent, and the hum of their engines is a low, foreboding growl. Lieutenant Blaz, staring, her voice barely a whisper. "It's like they've come to devour us." The ships do not simply enter the atmosphere, they tear through it, moving with a precision that is both terrifying and unnatural. The size and scale of these vessels are beyond any known technology. They are not just machines, they are harbingers of a dark future. The fleet begins to fan out, forming a pattern in the dark expanse of space, but the arrangement is chaotic, wild, as if the ships are drawn together by some malevolent force, united only in their purpose to destroy. Their weapons shine with deadly light, each one ready to unleash hell upon any who stand in their path. Commander TRZ, his voice thick with disbelief. "What are they? What kind of species makes ships like these?" The answer lies before them. These are humans, Earth's Reaper fleet, creatures of war who have molded themselves into something far beyond any ordinary force. Their ships are not just tools of war, they are their very existence. They are death incarnate, and they have come to claim the galaxy as their own. In the eerie silence that follows, the tension in the command center is palpable, thick enough to cut through with a knife. The darkness outside the ship is nothing compared to the darkness that now looms within. The fleet is here, and with it, the terrifying unknown of what it means to face the humans, the Reaper fleet. Int. Command Center, night. The atmosphere in the command center is thick with tension. The air feels electric, as if the very walls are trembling from the unspoken fears of those gathered within. The soft hum of the console systems is drowned out by the occasional distant thud of explosions, a reminder of the carnage still unfolding outside. The room is bathed in the eerie glow of flickering lights, casting long shadows that seem to stretch out across the faces of the crew. Around the room, several members of the command team stand frozen in place, their eyes glued to the main monitor. There is no need for words, everyone feels the weight of the moment, the oppressive silence broken only by the distant thrum of the fleet hovering above the planet. No one dares to breathe too loudly, fearing that any sound might somehow shatter the fragile thread of hope that has just appeared. The static crackles through the COMM system, the silence before the transmission feeling like the calm before a storm. And then, cutting through the stillness, a voice. The voice is smooth, almost unnervingly calm, as though the speaker is entirely unfazed by the catastrophic situation that surrounds them. Yet beneath the composed tone, there is something colder, something darker, a weight of authority that can't be ignored. Admiral Morgan Walsh, on screen, her voice carrying a dangerous edge. "This is Admiral Morgan Walsh of Earth's Reaper Fleet. We received your distress call. Sorry we're late. We picked up some party favors." The screen flickers and a new image appears. At first, it's just a dim silhouette of the Admiral, her figure looming in front of a backdrop that looks like the inner sanctum of some great warship. But then she steps into the light, and the camera pans slightly to reveal what is just behind her. A sea of massive missiles, lined up like cold, gleaming monuments of destruction. Each one is the size of a small building, their black metal bodies etched with dark symbols that seem to pulse with ominous energy. Their mere presence seems to distort the air around them, sending a shiver down the spine of everyone in the room. These weapons are not just tools of war, they are the very embodiment of death itself, waiting to be unleashed. The sight is enough to steal the breath from anyone who looks at it. Commander TRZ, hesitant, his voice shaking slightly. "Admiral Walsh, we are grateful for your arrival." The words are strained, his voice a mix of disbelief and reluctant relief. The humans had arrived, but in such a terrifying way, with weapons that made even the most battle-hardened veteran of the Vidayan Alliance feel small. The Admiral smiles slightly, her lips curling at the edges. It's a smile that doesn't reach her eyes that seem to gleam with something far more dangerous than simple amusement. Admiral Walsh, smiling slightly, her voice calm yet sharp. You're welcome. Now, let's deal with the Droians. Her words are simple, yet they carry with them the weight of an inevitable reckoning. There is no hesitation, no second thoughts. The Reaper fleet has arrived, and they are ready to destroy anyone who stands in their way. There is no diplomacy, no room for negotiation, only raw, unbridled destruction. It is what they are known for, what they excel at. The camera shifts, showing more of the immense warships in the background, their metal surfaces gleaming under the artificial lights. Each ship seems more monstrous than the last, their forms twisted and sharp, as though they had been built with the sole purpose of intimidating and annihilating anything that dared oppose them. In the silence that follows, there is a collective breath held by everyone in the command center. The air is thick with anticipation, a sense of inevitability hanging over them like a heavy fog. They have seen the strength of the Droian Empire, but now, they are witnessing the true terror of Earth's Reaper fleet. It is not just a fleet, it is a harbinger of annihilation. As the image of Admiral Walsh fades from the screen, the reality begins to sink in. They are no longer helpless. The humans have come. And with them, they have brought the storm. EXT Planetary Orbit, Day. Above the shattered surface of the planet, the stars seem distant and cold, yet the violence unfolding below is as fiery and immediate as any cosmic collision. The Droian fleet, once seemingly invincible, is pressing forward with deadly intent, their ships moving like a swarm of locusts, focused only on annihilating the last remnants of resistance. Their guns blaze, sending streaks of destructive energy into the depths of space, and their formation appears impenetrable. But the human ships, undeterred, descend from the void with a horrifying grace. They come in like phantoms of war, silent, swift, and relentless. The first wave of human fighters enters the fray, their sleek forms darting between explosions and enemy fire with a speed that defies logic. The air around them crackles with energy as they slip through the firestorm, moving in unpredictable, erratic patterns that leave the Droians baffled. Lieutenant Blaz, watching, eyes wide with disbelief. They are using drop pods? That's insane. The small human dropship's orbital pods tear through the atmosphere, their forms a blur of metallic destruction. They plunge downward without hesitation, like arrows aimed at the heart of the planet. Their descent is a death-defying spectacle, the pods shaking violently from the atmospheric friction, the air around them glowing with intense heat as they plummet toward the surface. Admiral Walsh, over comms, her voice dripping with amusement. It's effective. We like to keep our enemies guessing. Plus, we find that a 30% survival rate keeps everyone motivated. The words come as easily as a casual observation, as though the brutal odds are nothing more than a mild inconvenience to the Admiral's crew. The sight of the drop pods is terrifying in its casualness, like a challenge thrown into the face of the universe itself, daring the laws of nature to even consider slowing them down. Below, the human fighters continue their relentless assault. Every attack is met with an explosion that erupts like a star in the vastness of space. The ships, seemingly invulnerable, take hits that would obliterate any other fleet. Their hulls glow, scarred from the blasts, yet they press on, unfazed, as if they were born to survive impossible odds. And then, in response, they retaliate with merciless efficiency. The Droyan ships, once sleek and powerful, are turned into scrap metal, their weapons firing into empty space as their crews scramble to evade the onslaught. The Droyan flagship, the dread Eclipse, emerges as the last hope of the enemy, preparing to unleash its planet cracker beam. The massive energy weapon, a towering monstrosity, begins to glow with an unnatural green light, gathering power to obliterate the planet below. But the humans are ready. From the Harbinger, the flagship of the Reaper fleet, a massive torpedo is launched. It moves with a terrifying grace, cutting through the space between the two fleets. The sight of it is like witnessing a comet burning bright, unstoppable, and destined to collide with death. Commander TRZ, amazed, his voice hoarse with disbelief. Did we just witness the destruction of their most powerful ship? The dread Eclipse doesn't even have time to fire its weapon. The torpedo strikes with the force of a collapsing star, and in an instant, the massive vessel implodes. The core of the ship collapses in on itself, its structure folding like a dying star. The explosion is apocalyptic, a wave of energy that ripples across space, distorting reality as it expands. The shockwave seems to warp the very air around it, as though the universe itself is recoiling in horror. Captain Chen overcomes, his voice grinning with savage pride. It's just the beginning. Welcome to human firepower. The camera shifts, showing the last remnants of the Droyan fleet scattering like insects under the onslaught. Their ships are falling one by one, their once proud weapons rendered useless against the unstoppable might of the Reaper fleet. The humans are relentless, every ship that falls only seems to fuel their fury. The battle rages on, the stars above reflecting the fiery destruction below. It is not just a victory, it is a statement. And with each enemy vessel that burns, the humans make it clear, they are not just fighters. They are the storm. EXT Vidian Planet, Day. The ground beneath the human soldiers is still trembling from the aftershocks of the battle. The once shattered planet is beginning to stir with life again, as survivors and soldiers work side by side to rebuild. The Droyan forces have been driven back, their retreat a broken, chaotic mess of ships fleeing into the void. The sky, now cleared of smoke, reveals a new dawn, one where the stars shine brighter than ever before, but now with a new hope, forged in the fires of war. Commander TRZ, reflecting, his voice quiet, almost reverent. We never thought humans would come. We thought we were alone. The weight of his words hangs in the air. The Vidian people had faced extinction, their homes shattered, their hopes crushed. But now, thanks to the humans, they stand victorious. The sound of distant laughter, mixed with the clinking of tools and armor, fills the air. The once silent streets of the city are alive again, buzzing with activity. There is no longer fear in their eyes, only gratitude. Admiral Walsh, joining him, holding out a flask with a knowing smile. No one's ever really alone, Commander. We just needed to show up. They share a drink, the harsh tension of the battle slipping away in the warmth of the gesture. The universe seems quieter now, the terrible storm passed, but the scars of war remain. Yet there is peace, in the understanding that, for the first time, They are not alone. Epilogue, a new beginning, expanded. Int. Vidian Diplomatic Hall, Day. The Vidians and humans are gathered in the Grand Hall, the tension of war replaced by the murmurs of diplomacy. The grand chandelier overhead, once a symbol of the Vidian Alliance's former grandeur, now casts its light on a new, more promising future. Ambassador Krell, standing proudly, his voice resonating with newfound respect. When the Droians attacked, who answered our call? It wasn't the Galactic Concord or the Alien Federation. It was Earth. It was humans. They came, they fought, and they saved us. Now, we stand united. His words echo through the hall, carrying the weight of history itself. The crowd erupts in applause, but this is not just applause for a victory, it is applause for a new alliance, for a future that is no longer defined by the scars of war. The humans, once feared and misunderstood, are now respected, their place among the stars secured not by fear, but by the bond they have forged through blood and fire. The Vidians, their scales glinting in the soft light, watch with a newfound admiration. They had feared the humans, but now they see them for what they truly are, the bringers of change, of hope, and of life. As the applause fades, Commander TRZ, now a symbol of the new era, turns to Admiral Walsh, a glint of camaraderie in his eyes. They may come from different worlds, but in that moment, they are united. Commander TRZ, smiling, a rare moment of peace in his eyes. To new beginnings. Admiral Walsh, grinning, raising a glass in reply. To a galaxy that doesn't know what hit it. The hall fills with laughter and the sounds of clinking glasses, a symbol of the peace that now binds them together. The galaxy, once a cold and uncaring place, now feels like home. The war is over, but the story has only just begun.